A well-known clothing retailer is getting caught up in cultural politics. Some people complain the new ad by American Eagle featuring actress Sydney Sweeney sent an offensive message.
She's being called a white supremacist by people who don't like her latest ad.
The latest ad by American Eagle. And a lot of people are calling this Nazi propaganda.
Sydney Sweeney's American Eagle jeans ad was supposed to sell denim. Instead, it's being dragged as fascist propaganda and a white supremacist dog whistle.
Sydney Sweeney has very
One cheeky jeans, yacht jeans pun, and a close-up of her blue eyes have set off an internet firestorm that's now pulling in culture war pundits, branding experts, and political commentators.
But it's not the jeans sparking backlash, rather the message.
Sydney Sweeney has great jeans.
From claims of eugenics to accusations of pure jealousy, this backlash says far more about today's outrage machine than it does about a pair of pants.
For this advertisement, that is a purposeful act. Why? Because eugenics is deeply tied to the notion that some races are.
All right, let's talk about what actually happens in this ad, because on the surface, it's nothing wild. Sydney Sweeney walks in wearing tight American Eagle jeans, flashes that movie star smile, and says, "Genes are passed down from parents to offspring." Before dropping the punchline, "My jeans are blue." Classic cheeky wordplay, a famous face, and a pretty shot of the product. Brands have been doing this forever.
Wake up blonde-haired and blue-eyed, never having to explain who I am or worry about being accepted. That is why this American Eagle ad with Sydney Sweeney is...
But here's where it blew up. That little jeans joke was paired with a close-up of her blonde hair and bright blue eyes. And some people decided it wasn't just cute. They claimed it was secretly nodding to old-school eugenics beauty ideals. Honestly, that's a massive leap, but it's exactly the kind of leap that can turn a 30-second fashion ad into the internet's latest battleground.
Play on words is being compared to Nazi propaganda with racial undertones.
And this is where a simple jeans ad turned into pure internet drama. Within hours, TikTok and X were flooded with people either screaming propaganda or laughing at how ridiculous that sounded. Suddenly, it wasn't just about denim, it was about politics, beauty standards, and who gets to decide what's offensive.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue.
I've been complaining about that Sydney Sweeney jeans ad, so I went and saw it.
That's Nazi propaganda.
The argument snowballed fast. 5 days later, it wasn't just TikTok creators yelling about it, but political commentators, branding experts, and even TV debate panels weighing in. What could have been a forgettable marketing moment suddenly had everyone picking a side. Not about jeans, but about what those jeans were supposedly saying.
Good genes activates troubling historical associations for this country.
Here's where the outrage crowd really dug in. They didn't just see Sydney Sweeney in jeans. They saw a blonde, blue-eyed poster girl for what they call outdated, exclusionary beauty standards. In their minds, the whole "my jeans are blue" line was more than a pun. It was a wink to the idea that this look is the top of the pyramid. And of course, they couldn't ignore the male gaze factor. To them, the ad wasn't trying to sell to everyone. It was laser targeted at guys, using sex appeal as the hook. In their view, that's exactly the kind of marketing the fashion world should have buried years ago, not brought back in high def.
Had their wires crossed, something to that degree. But either way, American Eagle is standing by the ad. They're not apologizing, taking down the ad, and even went so far as...
Some even called it proof that the culture tide is turning. American Eagle didn't flinch, didn't issue a groveling apology, and definitely didn't pull the campaign. A far cry from the knee-jerk backdowns of peak cancel culture. In their eyes, the critics didn't expose some hidden agenda, they just showed how wildly out of touch they've become with normal people. This is where the guessing game really kicked in. Some people were convinced it was tailor-made for young, thirsty, right-wing guys, with Sydney Sweeney as the perfect lure. The truth is, the ad was simple enough for casual shoppers to enjoy, but cheeky enough to spark the kind of online chatter that turns into free marketing. Love it or hate it, people were talking about it everywhere. And that kind of attention is exactly what American Eagle wanted.
They said, quote, "This is yet another example of how social media is not just reflective of real life." So that was given from an American Eagle rep to TMZ.
Then came the little plot twist that kept the story alive even longer. TMZ ran a piece quoting an American Eagle rep, basically saying the backlash was ridiculous, only for that to be quietly changed to a source plugged into American Eagle. That tiny swap set off a whole new round of speculation about whether the brand was doubling down or trying to play it safe.
Sydney's are great jeans as slogan. Roger Meadows around the Rose on the right praised the campaign as a blow to wokeness. It's not about a blow, guys.
Either way, the message was clear. The ad wasn't going anywhere. No apology tour, no last-minute edits, no pulling the plug. In a world where brands usually fold at the first whiff of outrage, that alone made people sit up and pay attention.
For her great jeans, in the context.
Another layer that kept the conversation boiling was the whole pretty privilege debate. Clips started circulating of women talking about how being conventionally attractive opens doors, from getting into exclusive clubs to being treated better in everyday life. That naturally bled into the Sweeney discourse, once started with people pointing out how her looks weren't just part of the ad, they were the ad. It also sparked talk about how beauty can be both an advantage and a target. Some argue that women who openly leverage their looks for success get judged the harshest, especially by other women. In that sense, the backlash said as much about envy and double standards as it did about denim.
Now do black and brown women. Because black and brown women also have great genes that they inherit from their parents. Did you know that? They also have butts that look really good in jeans as well.
Then came the perspective that hit on something deeper: representation. One viral post described what it's like growing up as a brown girl in a mostly white community, wishing for blonde hair and blue eyes just to fit in. Seeing that exact image glorified in a major ad campaign, the post argued, can feel like a step backwards for anyone who spent years unlearning those beauty standards.
The woke outrage over Sydney Sweeney's ad has gone from, well, bad to worse. The cancel mob is still fuming over the superstar's new ad campaign for American Eagle, and just take a look at the headlines. Sydney Sweeney's ad shows an unbridled cultural shift toward whiteness.
It wasn't about hating Sydney Sweeney personally. It was about what her image symbolized in that moment. For some, it reignited old insecurities and made them wonder if the industry is still stuck on one narrow definition of beauty. And whether you agree with that take or not, it showed why the conversation went way beyond just a pair of jeans. And here's where it really snowballed. The outrage didn't stay online. People started tagging other brands Sydney works with, demanding they rethink their partnerships. What started as one ad campaign suddenly turned into a public trial of her entire career, with strangers acting like they had the power to cancel every future paycheck she might get.
For her roles in Euphoria and The White Lotus, launched an ad campaign with clothing brand American Eagle to promote a new line of their jeans.
And just when it seemed like things couldn't get messier, the conversation shifted from the ad to Sydney herself. Suddenly, her personal style, past interviews, and even old photos were being dragged into the debate as if they were part of the evidence. It stopped being about denim real quick. This was now a full-blown character judgment playing out in real time.
My body's composition is determined by my genes. Hey, eyes up here.
Sydney Sweeney has very keen.
And then we've got Sydney Sweeney, front and center, owning every frame of that ad like she's daring people to say something. She hasn't dropped a single comment, and honestly, that silence is louder than a press conference. Love her or hate her, she's clearly not running from this. And that makes one thing obvious. She's doubling down with the brand, holding her ground like she's betting the outrage will burn out before she ever does.
She's back, she sells jeans. She has to be attacked as Hitler because it blows up their narrative. Again, they want to create a narrative-based world, not an empirical world, not a world based on facts or logic or, things that we know are true. Everything has to be based on narratives.
And here's where it gets even wilder. Instead of going quiet and letting the hype die down, she's turning up the volume. Every interview, every social media drop feels like a calculated move to keep the spotlight glued to her. It's not damage control, it's a full-on power play to make sure her name stays in every conversation.
Sweeney comes along and says, no, people like attractive women, next two products. Blows up their narrative.
At this point, it's not just an ad anymore. It's a power move. She's flipped the outrage into free publicity, and every headline keeps her right where she wants to be. Center stage. That's the kind of strategy you don't pull off by accident. It's calculated, fearless, and unapologetic. So, here's where it leaves us. This wasn't just an ad, it was a full-blown statement. She's not stepping back, the brand's not backing down, and the conversation is nowhere near over. So, what's your take? Bold genius or reckless gamble? Either way, hit that subscribe button because this story is just getting started.